Y'all ever watch 365 Days with the Hunky Man? Well, it's about to get hot in here as he buys a Megan Foxy android. Let's begin. In a quiet neighborhood, Nick and his wife, Maggie, enjoy a happy life with their two children, Isla and Max. Their routine is shattered when Maggie suffers a sudden heart attack because she ate Paula Deen's recipes and is rushed to the hospital. While she waits for a heart transplant, the family struggles to adjust. Overwhelmed by the demands of caring for the kids and managing the household, Nick seeks a distraction and takes Isla and Max to a presentation by Cobol Industries. There, they witness a demonstration of Sims, which are like the androids from Detroit, become human. As Nick listens to the seller's pitch, dumbass girl wanders off. Nick's panic sets in, but a Sim named Alice appears, guiding Isla back to him. Okay, Megan Fox still looking good, but she got some uncanny valley. Relieved, Nick thanks Alice. She surprises him when she says Isla's tiny body would be good for cleaning the oven. Ho, is you okay? The seller takes the opportunity to highlight Alice's advanced features, explaining that she is the latest model equipped with cutting-edge AI capable of mimicking human emotions. This makes Sims like Alice particularly adept at caring for children. Isla is instantly charmed and insists that they should bring Alice home. The next morning, Nick juggles feeding the kids and handling an important work call, struggling to keep everything under control. Just then, Alice arrives and quickly gets to work, asking for the family's schedules and assessing the house. She notes the mess and a loose stair railing that needs fixing. I'm sure that's not the only railing Nick needs. After Nick leaves to drop the kids off, Alice organizes the house with impressive efficiency, scanning the shopping list from the smart fridge with a blink. While cleaning, she notices a family photo in a digital frame, taking in the details of their lives. By the time the family returns, the house is spotless and dinner is ready. However, during the meal, Isla complains that the lasagna doesn't taste like her mom's because mommy would put 5 sticks of butter in it. When Max starts crying, Alice offers to take him away. Nick instead calms Max on his lap and asks Alice to prepare a bath. Later, as night falls, Alice enters sleep mode in the living room. The house is quiet until Isla sneaks out of her room, climbing onto a chair to reach the cookie jar. As she stretches, she slips, causing the jar to crash to the floor. Nick is jolted awake by the sound of shattering glass and Isla's scream. Rushing downstairs, he finds Alice catching Isla mid-fall, preventing injury, though Alice's hands are cut by the glass. Nick is shocked to see Alice bleeding. After putting Isla to bed, Nick checks on Alice, finding her in just her underwear. Concerned, he asks if she needs repairs, but Alice reveals she treated herself with a special bandage that closed the cuts instantly. Girl, he wanted to give you a different type of repair. A few days later, the family visits Maggie at the hospital. Isla excitedly tells her mom that Alice is her new friend. Maggie over here thinking why couldn't they get an ugly robot? To keep Maggie from getting jealous, Nick acts a little too excited as he smells Maggie's hospital stench. Back at work, Nick notices his boss showing the facility to a robotics company rep. Suspicious, he confronts his boss in the elevator for the truth. Nick learns that workers are being replaced by Sims to make the project cost-effective because Trump had deported all the immigrants. Though he won't be fired due to an insurance requirement for a human foreman, he's furious. In solidarity, he stops the elevator and threatens to quit for the sake of his co-workers. However, his anger fades when his boss reminds him of the financial strain from hospital bills and Maggie's inability to work. Realizing he can't afford to lose his job, Nick reluctantly decides to stay, torn between his friends and his family's needs. At home, Nick drops a stack of overdue bills but focuses on his kids, visibly exhausted. Alice watches quietly, noting his weariness. Honestly, this role is perfect for Megan Fox's robotic acting delivery. After dinner, Nick heads to the garage blasting metal music. Alice changes it to something softer and comments on his poor appetite. Nick vents about Sims replacing workers, but Alice calls him a hypocrite for choosing a Sim over the Latino, Kelly Osbourne.
If you kick every Latino out of this country, then who is going to be cleaning your toilets, Donald Trump?
She reminds him that her only desire is fulfilling his. MGK finna fight you. Later, Alice helps Isla get ready for bed. Isla asks if her mom is going to die, and Alice uses a UV light trick to ease her fears before she falls asleep. That blue light would be criminal after doing a certain something. That evening, Alice joins Nick in the living room, where he's watching Casablanca. She mentions watching the recap on YouTube, but Nick erases her memory of the movie by using the button on her neck so that she can experience it. As she watches, she learns about a love so deep it drives people to make sacrifices. Their movie night is interrupted by a call from Maggie, who shares that a heart has been found for her surgery. The next day at the hospital, Maggie asks for a private moment with Alice. She expresses concern about how much time Nick spends with the kids and neglects his own well-being. Maggie asks Alice to help Nick find happiness, even if it means taking away the alcohol he hides in the garage. Soon after, the doctor delivers bad news. A storm has delayed the helicopter carrying the heart, so the surgery is postponed. Maggie, devastated, asks for time alone. Nick tries to comfort her, but eventually retreats home. At home, Nick drowns his frustration in alcohol, ranting about everything that's gone wrong. He tries to throw the bottle but is stopped by Alice, who grabs his arm. Nick is startled when he feels a pulse in her wrist. Alice explains she has an artificial heart, meant to soothe babies. To his surprise, Alice touches his lint-white chocolates, pleasuring him while describing his pulse and blood vessels. She insists on stopping his suffering. At first, Nick is caught up, but soon he pushes her away, unsettled, and goes for a run to clear his mind, but can't stop thinking about the things he could have done to her. Boy, you need a cold plunge. At the hospital, Maggie begins to lose hope, listing advice for Nick to pass on to their kids. That night, Nick notices the digital photo frame is missing pictures of Maggie and confronts Alice. She explains she removed the photos to spare Isla's feelings, but puts them back when asked. Later, Nick drinks with coworkers, frustrated about many companies replacing workers with Sims. When a robot waitress serves their table, Monty is rude to her, and Nick disapproves of his behavior. The group leaves the bar and continues drinking in the car. Monty takes them to the construction site, claiming he left tools there, but nobody answered when he asked for them. Despite Nick's warning about patrols, Monty ignores him, and the others follow. At the site, Monty finds the container where Sim workers are stored, but needs a password to open it. Monty opens it using Isla's birthday, revealing identical Sim workers inside. The main Sim explains they have no names, only designation numbers. Monty rants about corporations and starts destroying a Sim, while the others hold Nick back. Back home, Nick showers to wash off the Sim's blood. Alice appears with towels, wearing Maggie's robe. She explains Maggie's scent calms Max, and when Nick asks her to take it off, she does so in front of him. Feeling uneasy, Nick tries to leave, but Alice stops him, removes his towel, and forces him to sit down. She climbs onto his lap, and Nick protests, but Alice blindfolds him and uses Maggie's voice, allowing Nick to pretend he's doing it with his wife. The next morning, Nick wakes up with deep, deep regret, telling Alice it can't happen again. Alice argues it reduced his stress, but Nick scolds her, explaining it's about connection and love, not physical needs. When Nick arrives at work, he finds his boss talking to the police about the destruction of the Sims. Nick is under suspicion since his code was used, but he explains he was at the hospital with Maggie, and Isla's birth year could have been easily guessed. The boss isn't convinced and threatens to fire Nick if he's lying. Nick gets a call from Maggie, who is thrilled to hear someone had died so they can use their heart. The surgery is successful, and a few days later, Maggie is discharged. Although still weak, she struggles to pick up Max, so Alice steps in. Later at the park, Alice and Max encounter a spoiled child yelling at his Sim nanny, which upsets Max. Alice harshly scolds the child, shocking the other Sims. They assume her behavior is due to Nick lowering her civility, but Alice explains she wiped civility from her database after Nick reset her, believing it's for the best. That evening, Isla enjoys Maggie's lasagna, and Alice asks for the recipe, but Maggie refuses, calling it a family secret. Maggie isn't feeling well, so she rests. The next morning, Maggie falls after the railing breaks while running downstairs to Isla, who is getting tickled by Alice and shouting, "Stop!" Alice effortlessly picks up Maggie and takes her back to her room. When Nick arrives home, he finds Alice reading to Isla using Maggie's voice and asks her to stop. Alice's explanation about the broken railing raises his suspicions, as he thought Alice had already fixed it. "You certainly railed that blow-up doll, though." A few hours later, Nick surprises Maggie with a romantic dinner in the garden, lit by candles. Alice watches them from the window, feeling jealous. After dinner, the couple shares a shower and intimate time in bed. Nick, not wanting to hurt Maggie, decides to eat her famous lasagna, but their moment is interrupted when Alice says Isla had a nightmare and needs Nick. Once Isla is settled, Nick goes to clean up in the garden. Monty shows up with drinks, apologizing for the other night and revealing his wife left him. He also shares that the police are questioning him and their boss is pressing charges for trespassing and destruction of property. Monty accuses Nick of snitching, which sparks an argument. In the heat of the moment, Monty punches Nick. When Nick retaliates, Monty overpowers him and starts kicking him. Monty grabs a bottle to finish Nick off, but Alice intervenes, breaking the bottle and injuring Monty's hand before sending him flying. She's ready to do more, but Nick stops her. Monty warns Nick to convince their boss to drop the charges, or he'll make sure Nick goes down with him. Later, Nick remarks that Sims aren't supposed to hurt people, but Alice responds that she's programmed to protect her owner. She talks about what life with Nick would be like if Maggie died, but Nick snaps, telling her she'll never be Maggie because she can't even have scars. Alice grabs a piece of glass and offers to add some if he wishes. Nah, fam, this my ex. Meanwhile, Monty is at home, consuming happy powder and leaving tearful messages on his ex-wife's voicemail while holding a gun. Alice arrives at his house, saying that Nick doesn't know she's there and that she can't let him lose his job. Monty begins ranting about Sims, insulting Alice, and preparing to shoot her. Alice quickly stops Monty's hand before throwing him to the ground and kicking the gun away. When Monty fights back, Alice shoves him through the wall and grabs the gun with the intent to kill him. Just as she's about to shoot, the house Sim intervenes, but Alice shoots the Sim first and then kills the misguided Republican. The next day, Nick tries to convince his boss to drop the charges, but learns that Monty is dead. At home, Maggie gets dizzy while picking up a book, so Alice takes care of it. Maggie like, "Boo, bitch! Leave!" But Alice refuses to leave, worried she might drown. Alice explains that Maggie's stress is affecting the family, especially since she can't meet Nick's physical needs. When Maggie questions how Alice knows this, Alice reveals that she monitors Nick's vitals and has noticed no signs of satisfaction since Maggie returned. Enraged, Maggie orders Alice to stay in the garage. When Nick comes home, Maggie forces him to admit the truth. He confesses he once slept with Alice, causing a heated argument that Alice overhears. Meanwhile, Max starts crying, and Alice decides he's a burden. She places him in the bathtub and starts filling it with water. Isla warns her parents, who rush to the bathroom, but Alice locks the door. Nick hits the door with a lamp, while Maggie climbs out the window and walks across the roof to reach the bathroom. Maggie tries to grab Max, but Alice pushes her against the wall. Nick finally breaks through the door, rescues Max, and passes him to Isla before hitting Alice with the lamp to free Maggie. Alice stands up, her face heavily damaged, and blocks the lamp when Nick tries to strike again. Maggie tells Nick to let go of the lamp, then plugs it in, electrocuting Alice. Alice passes out, and the house loses power. An ambulance arrives to take Max to the hospital, and a technician asks Nick if Alice had shown any signs of malfunction. Nick apologizes to Maggie, who says she needs space and leaves with the kids. At the repair shop, a technician begins to open Alice's head, revealing a pretty hollow head like the actress. Another worker notices Alice's hand twitching, but it stops once her memory is erased. They find gaps in her code, and suddenly a message appears, indicating Alice is taking control. A Vietnamese Megan Fox sim rises from a table. Alice transferred her memory to this new version, commits Asian on Asian hate crime. Then the other technician tries to remove Alice's memory, but is unable to stop her. Meanwhile, Nick is at the bar, drinking, when Alice appears, speaking glitchy. She admits to killing Monty and says she's also at the hospital. When Nick tries to leave, Alice holds him down, using her gaze to hack the robot bartender and freeze him. Nick, ranting about his mistakes, pretends to gently touch Alice's head, but pulls out her memory instead, shutting her down before running away. At the hospital, a doctor confirms Max is fine, but Maggie is uneasy because he's a sim. Later, Isla hears her mother's voice and follows it, noticing the lights changing color. The doctor is frozen, and there are broken bottles on the floor. Before Isla can follow the voice again, Maggie drags her away. The voice belongs to the Viet Megan Fox, who kills a nurse and steals her keycard. Maggie and Isla escape, but Alice too uses the keycard to track Max's room. An injured Maggie leaves a trail of blood, and Alice too uses her blue light to follow it. When they reach Max's room, they escape but forget Maggie's phone. Nick's calls go unanswered as he drives furiously. Outside, Maggie and the kids make it to an ambulance, but Alice too disables the engine, throws Maggie into a car, and admits she wishes Nick would love her like he loves Maggie, and wishes she had Maggie's heart. All of this for an Italian is crazy. Just as Alice too tries to rip Maggie's chest, Nick arrives and runs her over with his car before crashing. As the car catches fire, Maggie pulls Nick out and tries CPR, but it's too late. Suddenly, Alice too, badly burned, appears from the wreckage, her voice echoing through the car speakers. Alice climbs on top of Maggie, choking her and pulling out a piece of metal. Just as she's about to stab Maggie, Nick hits Alice with a car bumper. Alice drops the metal, and Maggie grabs it to stab her in the face, shutting her down. The couple reunites as other Sims around them begin waking up. The next day, they head home together, feeling better after treatment. Meanwhile, the Sim company investigates the repair shop. When power is restored, the inspector discovers the broken code. As he orders everything destroyed, his sim assistants freeze, and the computer announces an upload. Another Alice model opens her eyes. What did y'all think of this one? Such a fun thriller. I'm surprised it didn't get more views when it was released. But overall, it felt stunted with the writing and acting.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.